For this week's Smith Business Close-Up, we're on location at the University of Maryland. And joining us here at the Robert H. Smith School of Business is Professor Rajshree Agarwal, who is the Rudy Lamone Chair and Director of the Ed Snider Center for Enterprise and Markets. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
We want to focus on redefining one's brand. And Google, a big company, not a person, has just been putting some effort into doing exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And indeed, we often think about companies and CEOs of companies having to worry about what is the company about? What are the assets that the company has? What are the opportunities that are facing it? But one of the things that I often encourage people is to think of themselves as the CEO of their own company, which is themselves. And are you doing everything that the CEO does in terms of nurturing a company, thinking about where is it that you want to take it, so that you're not just thinking in terms of what you are today, but where is it that you want to grow?
Is that easy for your students? They're young people, to some extent, young people now with the presence, they're all on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. They are automatically their own media brand. Do they look at this differently than somebody of my generation?
So I actually think that regardless of what your age, you should be thinking of it exactly in the same way. Because regardless of whether you're young, just starting off in your life and your career, and you're making all of these investments, or, and by the way, you're very young, Jeff, so that's not an age issue. But regardless of which age you are, you should be thinking in terms of where is it that I want to grow to. So it's not even thinking about the past and what you were, but how do you leverage all of your experiences, all of your prior investments to be where you want to be in 5 years from now. And I often just say 5 years. Well, why not 2 years, you might ask? Why not 10 years? Well, if you think about it, you don't want to say, well, if by the time I die, I want to accomplish this, because that's too long, right? And I would rather think about what we're doing to live rather than to die. And 2 years is a little too short a time, because if it's something that's big, it's something that's important, something that inspires you, it should be about a 5 to 10 year horizon, where you can be thinking about what you want to be. So I often ask my students to just take a piece of paper and say, in 5 years, I will consider myself successful if. And really what the if is very individual. But it's more sitting down, writing it on a piece of paper, and kind of taking these thoughts which may be jumbled in your head and putting the discipline to what is it that I want to do in 5 years, and then saying, how am I going to get there?
I forget who it was who said that exercise, the idea of setting a goal, is really just daydreaming until you write it down, and then it becomes an actual goal.
So I don't know who said that, but I would agree with them, in as much as the writing out of what you want to do is a commitment that you're making to yourself. And when you do that, and when you see it in paper, you're immediately thinking, well, if I want to achieve this goal, and if it's a goal that is worth achieving, if it is a stretch goal, then for sure you're going to have to say, well, if I need to do that, what do I need to do in order to get this goal accomplished? And that's when you start thinking in terms of, well, what is my identity? Who am I? And more than that, what's my image? Because what do you think of me? Because if I am trying to provide value to the important stakeholders, then it's important for me to communicate my identity to you, which then becomes my image. If my identity and my image are not exactly the same, then something's wrong. Either I am not who I think I am, or I'm not communicating very well who I am. Either way, that's an opportunity for us to think about what needs to change.
Can we as individuals handle this task on our own? Or do you really need to bring other people in? Do you need the perspective of an outsider?
Yes.
Does Google, when they do this, need a consultant to step back from the day-to-day grind and look at the situation?
So you need to be very careful about whom you ask the questions. But I am all for the fact that an individual should have a board of directors or a board of advisors. CEOs have boards of directors and board of advisors. Why is that? It is because they trust these people to be objective, to bring attention to them, not only their own strengths and weaknesses, but also some opportunities or some threats that are facing them. And so it becomes a taking stock of the landscape that you're in and what you bring to the landscape. So I, for instance, always advise people to have about 3 to 4 people that they would consider to be their board of directors. And then I say create a quid pro quo, because it's not something that you're going to pay somebody to do for you. And in fact, you want them to be your well-wishers. So one way I say it is you be on their board of directors and they'll be on yours. I, for instance, have a meeting with my board of directors once a month. So there are 3 of us. We get together every month. One month we will talk about me. Another month we might talk about you. The third month we'll talk about someone else. You don't want to have people that are always going to criticize you and bring you down. You know, you don't want the naysayers. That wouldn't be fun. But on the other hand, you also don't want people that are just going to say, great idea, Jeff. You want to have that balance, and you want to make sure that the people that you choose are not only going to be objective, but are going to give you kind of a 360-degree perspective. So I, for instance, would like to see some subordinates and some peers and some superiors, right? So whichever way. So don't just think one way. Or think about friends and family too, whom you trust to be able to give you good advice, but then don't get very upset with you because you use your own mind and you might choose not to act on them.
Well, that is good advice. Rajshree Agarwal joining us from the Robert H. Smith School of Business. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.